they're gonna love you to death. They're gonna want you to come over to their house. They're gonna want you to marry their daughter. You'll see 7-Elevens everywhere. On one street, you could see 5 7-Elevens. If you stood in the right corner, you could see like 3 that way and 2 that way. They are absolutely everywhere, and everything again is crazy cheap. So be careful with that, or you'll probably gain some weight, just because you can always justify, 5 baht for a cookie, or 7 baht for a soda, or things like that. So be careful. But 7-Eleven is just like a quintessential part of Thai culture, and anyone who spent any time in Thailand knows 7-Eleven like the back of their hand. So get used to that. Everyone rides motorcycles and mopeds, probably more than cars. And so you'll just see, parked at a red light, 3 lanes will be completely full, no cars, just motorcycles and mopeds. 5 people do a single motorcycle. They drive very fast. Driving laws don't really exist. It's the one rule is basically like the biggest car wins. And so you'll see, a truck just barreling down the exact center of the road at 70 miles an hour. Anyone else that's smaller than them coming towards them has to scoot to the side and kind of hope they don't get hit. So be careful riding your bike. They also have a samla or tuk-tuk, which is kind of like a 3-wheeled car with a little open back. And you'll just sit there and tell the driver where to go. It's like a taxi, a little 3-wheeled taxi. Those are a lot of fun. And then kind of the cross between a tuk-tuk and a bus is called a songtao, which means 2 lines. It's just got a big cabin in the back, with the whole backside is open. You can just walk in and out with 2 rows of benches, and those will ride everywhere in the city. A little smaller than a bus, bigger than a tuk-tuk, and those go everywhere. So you'll ride in those a ton. People don't really drive cars as much. It's very much motorcycles or public transportation, and those things will get packed. The songtails will just be way past capacity. The benches will be filled, people will be pushed as far in as they can, hanging off the back, like just a foot and an arm hanging off, just so that they can fit on. A lot of fun. Be careful if it's too packed, just wait for the next one. It'll come. Very different, but a lot of fun. It was kind of weird to come home and kind of see cars and order in the streets, and you're driving and people are following traffic rules and stopping at stop signs. It's not really gonna happen. Just kind of go with the flow, have fun with it while you're there. I was at a park, and this park had a very large lake, and I had heard stories about, they're called water monitors. So kind of like a Komodo dragon, but smaller. The name for that animal in Thai is a very offensive curse word, so you always talk about it euphemistically. And I had heard stories about this, but we're at this park and there's this big lake, and we sat down just to take a break for a second, drink some water. And right about 5 feet from us in the water, there was like a probably 8 foot long, enormous water monitor. This thing was huge, just swimming through the water, and it would just disappear and come back up. And we were just kind of watching it sitting there, and then it just disappeared, and we kind of forgot about it. And then as we stood up to leave, we turned around and realized that it was sitting underneath the bench that we were on. It had gotten up somewhere else, gotten out of the water and come around, and was underneath the bench that we were sitting on, and we didn't even notice. 8 foot long, giant monster lizard. So we got out of there pretty fast. We moved. Keep your eyes peeled. If you're ever in Bangkok, you'll see all the canals, they're called klongs. You'll see lots and lots of water monitors in there. Don't touch them. They're disgusting. It's not worth it. Just stay away from them, but they are kind of cool to see and get some pictures of. So a little bit of a Thai culture thing. With Buddhism, animals are ranked according to how dirty they are, humans being the highest. And so calling someone an animal of any kind is like a curse word. And a water monitor is like the worst. So if you call someone water monitor, that is about as offensive as you can get, because they're so dirty. And because of that, if they bite you, you're guaranteed to at least get extremely sick, like close to death, if not die. So they're not that aggressive, but if you mess with them, see them crossing the street and want to like pull on their tail or things like that, they'll get aggressive if you do things like that. So don't risk it. Just, get pictures from afar or over a bridge or something if you see them. Get used to people staring at you. Get used to people talking about you a lot, because Thai people are so nice, it's never rude. Don't be afraid of Buddhism. Don't bash it, because it's really close and really important to Thai people. I just moved to this one area, and this particular town called Surin is well known for having a lot of elephants. So one day a year that they would have this province-wide, like statewide elephant festival. So we get there and they have a giant parade of elephants, around 250, going down the streets in this tiny little town, just walking through, and they have music and dancers and storytelling just on our first day, and it was just a fantastic little welcome to this new area that we had just gotten to, completely by surprise. I remember they had a truck that drove by blasting music out of speakers from the side of it, and the song was just going, welcome to Surin, welcome to Surin, over and over and over. Surin's the name of the town. And so that was a really nice kind of welcome. And then our last day in the area, or at least my last day, when I moved, as we were leaving, it just so happened that the taxi we were in was playing a song that was talking about Surin and leaving Surin. So my first day I got a very nice welcome song and an elephant party, and my last day the taxi driver, by complete chance, played a goodbye to Surin song for me as I left. So that was kind of fun. So I was in Bangkok, in Bangkok, so a very busy city district. So I had just gotten a bike. It was new, I was super excited about it. And my companion and I, we parked our bikes and locked them underneath a bridge near our apartment. And then that night, we ended up having to go to a different area and forgot that we had left our bikes locked overnight and for a day. So we come back and our bikes are gone, which we were pretty disappointed about, obviously. And mine was new, I'd just gotten it. And we kind of forgot about it. And then about a week, 2 weeks later, we're walking down the street and this man is riding a bike towards us. And as he's biking past us, he kind of gives this kind of shifty glance, like he's trying to avoid our eye contact. And my companion said, Elder Duffield, that looks a lot like your bike. A lot like your bike. I was like, yeah, you're right, that's kind of funny. You know, completely clueless. And he passes us, this guy bikes past us, goes down a side street. And then about 30 seconds later, we stopped in our tracks and we're like, that's the guy who stole our bike. We literally just watched it go by. So that was kind of fun. We went to visit this less active member. As we're sitting in his house, you know, the walls started to shake a little bit, and we asked him, you know, Brother Thao, what's going on? Like, you know, what's that sound? What's going on with the walls? He's like, oh, that's just the neighbors and their water buffalo. It just so happened that the neighbors, for whatever reason, wanted to birth a new water buffalo in their house in the city, not at the farm. We never figured out why. So we were just trying to teach a lesson in this little house in the city, and in the house next door to us, somehow they'd gotten a water buffalo inside that was giving birth, which was a little distracting noise-wise. We did see the water buffalo 2 days later as we were walking down that street. They were leading the buffalo back out to the farm. Never figured out why they decided to do that, but definitely a good experience. You may have heard it before, Thailand being a tourist destination, it's often called the land of smiles because Thai people are so smiley and so friendly, which is absolutely true. Once or twice in my entire time there was someone aggressive or rude. They're so nice and so kind. And especially you being a foreigner and trying to speak their language, they're excited to talk to you. They want to talk to you. They want to know why you're there, why you speak Thai. Super friendly. Like, you'll never meet more friendly people. Very smiley, very inviting and welcoming. If you ask them for anything, they'll give it to you. If you ask someone for food, they'll give you food. If you need a water, you ask someone for a bottle of water, they'll give you one. No questions asked. And they're super respectful as well. So make sure you pay attention to that, because you may unconsciously be offending them, but they're so nice they won't tell you. You may be doing things that are culturally incorrect or culturally offensive, but they know you're a foreigner, so they understand that, and they don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. So they'll be hesitant to tell you, but they're very touched when foreigners make an effort and really pay attention to their cultural values and pay a lot of respect to their elders. That's really important. But they're gonna love you so much everywhere you go. They're just so nice. You can't get over that. It's called the land of smiles for a reason. I don't know, they love everybody. They love each other. They love foreigners, and especially foreigners who show an interest in them and their culture and their language. If you like their food, they'll love you even more. An interesting note about the language is that you don't really use words for I, you, he, she. You use family words. So, you know, you call someone a brother, or, you know, older brother, little brother. If someone's around your mom's age, you might call her mom and she'll call you son. They have a big sense of family, familial love to everyone, including you. So if you get close enough to someone, an older woman, for example, and she calls you, you know, Lu, son, that just shows that she really loves you like a son, and she'll take care of you like that. She'll just give you food. She'll give you a place to stay. They're really loving. So just be ready for that. And be willing to love them back as much as they do you. You'll hear about a lot of countries in Asia like China or Japan where people can be very strict on like time schedules and timetables and very strict on, you know, cultural rules and that kind of thing. That's not Thailand. Thailand people they're very relaxed. It's a lot of fun. They know how to have a good time. You're riding on a bus just talk to the person next to you and say, hey, I'm new to Thailand, I'm learning Thai, can you please help me? Every single time, they're gonna say yes and see what they can do to help you out. Because they just get so excited about foreigners learning Thai because it never happens. So you say one or two things in Thai and they're gonna love you to death. They're gonna want you to come over to their house. They're gonna want you to marry their daughter. Just be friends with them. They want to be your friend, even if they don't say it, they do. Thailand is very different than the United States for a lot of reasons. It's a lot cheaper. It's way cheaper. For example, just to get a plate of food, a big plate of rice, vegetables, fried rice, vegetables, and some meat is gonna be about 30 to 40 baht. It's approximately 30 baht to the dollar, somewhere around there. It might be a little higher, but so you can get for about $1, you can get a pretty big dinner. Everything's cheaper. You can ride a bus from one end of the city to the other for 8 baht per person. So I don't know, it's a fraction of $1. So everything's way cheaper, very hot. We had a freak cold spell once in an area I was in, and it got down to the high 60s with the wind chill, and people were wearing parkas and big earmuffs and furry hats and all that. And I was feeling really good in my short sleeve shirt for once instead of sweating to death. It all really depends on where you are in the country, because there's the center of Thailand, that's Bangkok, and the city's huge. It just goes out forever, for miles. The entire center province of Thailand is basically just Bangkok. But it's very distinct depending on where you are. In the center, they speak really pure, you could consider it pure standard Thai. And then if you go into the north, it's very mountainous. It's a little cooler there, a little more dry. They'll speak a totally different dialect called Northern or Nha. If you go to the northeast, that's more stereotypical Thailand, where it's very jungly. There's a lot of farms. It's a little bit of that kind of culture. A lot of rice paddies, a lot of like buffaloes and livestock. And they have their own dialect as well, called Isan. In the south, the food is really spicy. Their dialect is really weird. They speak really, really fast. But down there, it's all beaches. It's all islands, very touristy in the south. So the country is very different depending on the region you're in, but everywhere is just so much fun. There's not a boring area anywhere in the country. Everywhere's got something fun, something interesting, and their own unique little culture. Every city is gonna have its own little dialect and its own history. The farther away from Bangkok you go, the more divergent their, the way they talk is, the more divergent their dialect is, and they'll each have their own histories and cultures. So Thailand is 95% Buddhist. Everyone is Buddhist. Not very many Christians. Very few people even know what Christianity is in the first place. They've heard of it, like they'll learn about it in school, but they don't know, they've never read anything out of the Bible. They don't know about biblical people like Moses and Abraham and Paul. They're not going to know who those people are. So that's a huge part of the culture. You're going to see Buddhist statues and temples everywhere. I mean, your first week you're going to be taking so many pictures. They're absolutely everywhere, no matter where you are in the country. All the schools are going to be attached to a wat. Every government buildings will be right next door to a wat. You'll see them everywhere. You'll see monks around in the mornings, walking around barefoot in their robes, carrying like a bucket for people to drop in food and to give alms, kind of like tithing. So Buddhism is just so ingrained into the culture that Thai people, even if they don't practice, they're Buddhist. Like they just consider themselves Buddhist because they are Thai. A number of years ago, I think during World War II, the king of Thailand at the time made to kind of unify the country, because all the different regions, they're all very distinct culturally, linguistically, historically. And during World War II, the king wanted to unify them all. So he created the 5 rules, the 5 points of Thai-ness, like what makes you Thai. And one of those rules is Buddhism. And so everyone's Buddhist, basically. You'll see temples absolutely everywhere. You'll get very accustomed to that. But it's super cool. Don't be afraid of Buddhism. Don't bash it, because it's really close and really important to Thai people. Every time you greet someone, you Y is what it's called. You bow like that. And there's a lot of cultural rules like that for greeting people and being respectful. And so that was kind of a shock to me. Just every time I met someone, they'd bow to me like that, or they'd call me little brother, or older brother if they were younger than me, or they call me son. So that's just kind of unusual to get used to. But the farther out of the cities you get, little kids will like be pointing and like, what? Super confused. And so I don't know, get used to people staring at you, get used to people talking about you a lot, because Thai people are so nice, it's never rude. But people are gonna pay a lot of attention to you. and because of that you want to be respectful, like doing your little bows when you meet older people, referring to people in respectful ways. They pay a lot of attention to making the other person comfortable and not imposing their will on somebody else. So you're gonna have to get used to figuring out what they want, even if they're not telling you. They may be uncomfortable with something, but they're not gonna tell you, because if they tell you, that then makes you uncomfortable because you've made them uncomfortable. It's very complicated, but that's just how they are. And so just get comfortable with them and pay attention to what makes them uncomfortable so that they'll like being around you, they'll wanna talk to you, wanna be your friend. Get used to being the odd one out. You're never gonna look like anyone there, unless you have Thai or Lao blood. So Thai, it's tonal. Like a lot of Asian languages, it's not as scary as it sounds. You get used to it. You don't have to be musically inclined to get it. The writing's very different, a lot of fun. It's really different, and so it can seem kind of scary and kind of hard, but just kind of have fun with it, get used to it, enjoy it, practice it a lot, and it's gonna be well worth your time. And again, the language changes depending on where you are. No matter where you go, you'll always be able to use standard Thai, what they speak in Bangkok, but people really like it if you learn a little bit of their dialect. If you're in the north and you use northern dialect, if you go to the northeast and you use northeastern dialect, you go to the south and use southern dialect, they love that kind of thing. Like in standard Thai, just to say, do you speak Thai? Kun putภาษาไทยได้ไหม? In northern, you would say อู้เหนือได้ก่อ. In the northeast, it'd be ว่าวอีสานได้บ่? And in the south, it'd be พูดไทยได้ไหม? And so it's very different depending on where you are. You're always safe with the standard dialect, but people love it if you pick up a little bit of their dialect wherever they are. So definitely give that a shot. Don't be afraid of the language. It's very intuitive. You don't have to worry about conjugations like you do in Spanish or Russian or Portuguese, anything like that. And you can keep things super short and simple. If someone asks, are you going to the store? All I have to say is go. Super simple. You go into the store, go. Very intuitive, and there's a lot of respect in the language as well. You'll have a little word that you use at the end. For guys, you use kap. If you're a girl, you say ka. And you just stick that at the end of a sentence to make things sound polite. They don't really have a word for yes and no. You can just use those polite words to act as that, as like a I recognize what you're saying kind of thing. So if someone asks you, if someone asks like, hey, are you missionaries? You can just say kap. Doesn't mean yes, doesn't mean no. It just means I acknowledge you've said something, and in this case, it's an affirmative. It's a lot of fun. You'll get to use that word a lot. It's probably my favorite word because it's so versatile. You can use it in any situation, and you just kind of get used to using it a lot and kind of get the feel of it. Super fun. But yeah, the language is a ton of fun. สวัสดีครับคนไทยนะครับ ผมชื่อเบนครับ ผมได้รับใช้ที่ประเทศไทยเป็นเวลา9 เดือน และผมกตัญญูมากสำหรับเวลาที่ผมได้มีตอนที่อยู่ที่นู่นรู้จักกับคนไทยเยอะผมรักกับภาษาไทยคนไทยวัฒนธรรมไทยแบบอาหารไทยแบบความเป็นคนไทยทั้งหมดเลยประเทศไทยมีที่อยู่พิเศษในใจของผมเป็นสถานที่ศักดิ์สิทธิ์ที่ผมรักมากและจะมีอิทธิพลในชีวิตของผมนานมากผมกตัญญูที่ได้มีเวลาอยู่ที่ประเทศไทยรับใช้กับคนไทยและมีเพื่อนคนไทยด้วยและผมรู้ว่าคนไทยแบบศาสนาเป็นเรื่องยากสำหรับคนไทยเพราะว่าทุกคนเป็นศาสนาพุทธแล้วศาสนาพุทธมีพรหลายอย่างสำหรับชีวิตและศาสนาคริสต์มีด้วยพระเยซูคริสต์เป็นองค์หนึ่งที่รักคุณเป็นคนเดียวพระองค์รู้จักกับคุณและผมรู้ว่าพระองค์มีอยู่จริงพระเยซูคริสต์ได้มาบนโลกนี้ให้ไถ่บาปของเราให้คุณจะมีโอกาสที่จะล้างบาปที่จะกลายเป็นคนที่ดีขึ้นที่จะพัฒนาไปได้ทุกวันผมรักคนไทยและรู้ว่าพระเยซูคริสต์และพระผู้เป็นเจ้าทรงรักคุณด้วยรักคนไทยประเทศไทยวัฒนธรรมไทยและผมขอกล่าวสิ่งเหล่านี้ในพระนามของพระเยซูคริสต์เอเมน